Hello and welcome to Wealth Health, financial planning and answers for individuals in the healthcare industry. Joining us are Tom Jaras and Sean Shadwell, certified financial planners and partners with Premier Planning Group. In this session, we're going to be discussing year-end tax considerations. And Tom, in past sessions, we've taken a look at various strategies such as 401ks and IRAs, but outside of these vehicles, what are some other type of options should we be considering?
Yeah, so generally speaking, when people are maximizing their retirement accounts or they're putting some money in a rainy day fund, they're using what's called a taxable investment account. And simply what that means is any interest, dividends, et cetera, they pay taxes on in the year that they realize. So with the market being like it's been this year, which is down, one of the things that you may hear is what's called tax loss harvesting. And so what that means is looking at your positions and saying, okay, where do I have gains? Where do I have losses? And how do I offset those? So some of the things that we look at are, on what's called short-term losses, which is under a year that you've held a position. If you realize that, meaning you sell it and you take the loss, you can actually use that to offset a portion of your income up to $3,000 this year. So that's something that we look at. The other thing too is long-term. If you have a lot of long-term losses and you realize those, well, now you get what's called a carry forward, meaning that on your taxes, that stays with you forever until you use it. So moving forward, you can use that to offset future gains. So that's a big thing that we encourage people to look at and that we do for our clients is how do we make them tax efficient and get the most out of their, savings while even, their rate of return might not be good.
Sean, thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I will add to that. In these accounts, there's different vehicles. So you might hear words like mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, etc. If we look at a mutual fund, which is an investment that's made up of a lot of other investments inside of it, right? So you can buy one mutual fund, but inside of it, it might own 50 different stocks. Well, the rules on a mutual fund is that during the year, especially like a down year where people will sell and take money out, when they get nervous with market volatility, there are capital gains inside of that mutual fund. And by law, it has to pay those out to the shareholders. So this year will be a year where you could have a loss in your mutual fund from the market, and you could be getting a taxable distribution out of this mutual fund. So it's kind of like a double whammy this year. So there are different vehicles that can be more tax efficient in a brokerage account like Tom talked about. And we look at things like ETFs or, individual stocks. They don't pay capital gains, they pay dividends. Well, that has a better tax treatment to the investor versus capital gains paid out by these mutual funds.
I've heard it said that it's for many people, it's a good idea to convert their IRA or 401k into a Roth. Tom, can you say something about that?
Yeah, so I would say in general, the answer would be it depends where you are tax-wise, right? Because a lot of people put money in pre-tax to lower their taxable income, with the thought being that when they take that money out, they'll pay taxes on it and by comparison be in a lower tax rate and therefore come out ahead. Well, as we all know, things happen in your life. It doesn't always work out that way, so on and so forth. To give you an example, I have a client who is a nurse anesthetist and was working for a while, was making pretty good money, contributing pre-tax money to his retirement plan, and decided to go back to school. Well, when he was in college, he had zero income. So we took his pre-tax account and converted it to Roth. So he paid the taxes on that. But since he had no income, he was not in a tax bracket. So as a younger guy, now he's got 30 plus years of tax-free growth on his money and didn't pay any tax to convert it. So it can be a good idea, Terry. I think it just is dependent on where you are. If someone's a surgeon and they make $1 million a year, it probably doesn't make sense for them to pay taxes on their pre-tax money and convert it. But if you're talking about someone who's maybe entering retirement and they lost their income and only have pre-tax money, converting a portion of it can make sense. In the story that I told where my client went back to school and didn't have an income, and they're in a low tax bracket, or no tax bracket, it can make sense. So there's certain, I would say, life events, if you will, where it can make sense to pay the taxes on it, because ultimately what we're trying to do is lower your total lifetime tax by doing something like that.
So, Sean, with an IRA or 401k, the money goes in before you pay tax on it. You pay the tax when it comes out at the end in your retirement. Of course, with the Roth, you pay the tax up front and you don't have tax on the way out. It's interesting, when you're younger, the 401 IRA looks like a pretty good idea, but when you get to be my age, that Roth would be pretty nice to have where I'm not paying taxes. Any thoughts on that?
Now it's always nice when you can have different buckets going into retirement. That way we, pull some from pre-tax bucket. That way because you want some taxable income, because you have your tax deduction as a couple or a single person. But to be able to pull from the Roth and the power that has, especially when you start young, is super powerful. And to go along with Tom, this time of year, when the market has done what the market's done this year, which, it's not been a great year, those are also good times to convert. Because if you think about it, your assets that you have been putting into pre-tax are down. So you can convert more shares over to the Roth, and then you're buying back in at that lower price. So hopefully it gives you some opportunity to grow your Roth while we're in a down market.
Tom, as you plan for year end, is giving to a charity still a good idea from a tax perspective?
Yeah, well, we always encourage people to give to charity if they're inclined to do that. I think we can all agree that that's a good thing. But as far as doing it, I think certainly it can make sense depending where your income is, and if you need a tax deduction. I think how you go about it is another thing that's worth discussing. One of the most popular vehicles out there is what's called a donor advised fund, which is simply where, let's say me as the individual, I open it up, I can put money in, I get a tax deduction, and then later down the road, if I find something that is a legitimate charity that I want to give to, I can make a gift from it. So it limits the pressure of having to find something this year to do if you're not sure. I think how you go about it can be a little bit, where the art and science come together, because different things allow you to deduct more or less of your income. So, cash gives you the highest percentage that you can deduct off your income, whereas appreciated securities give you a lower rate. But generally, if people have appreciated securities, they like to gift those because they don't want to pay the tax on it, right? So it makes it easier for them versus, going into their bank account and sending that to the charity.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, with thinking of securities, sometimes you might get gifted stock from a grandparent. Maybe they worked at a Procter & Gamble, at something like that, and they'll gift grandkids stock over time. That stock might not have the cost basis, so we don't know what they paid for it. Well, in the eyes of the IRS, they just make it zero, and so you're going to pay tax on that, the full amount, unless you can go back and track down your cost basis. Gifting, it doesn't matter what the basis is. It just matters what the value is the day that you gift it. So those are always good ideas if you don't know the basis on some of your, maybe, again, something you might have inherited or been gifted over time. The other thing is, Tom mentioned donor advised fund. That is a super friendly, easy way to gift money, get your tax deduction now. Again, once you make that gift, you get your deduction now, and then you have as long as you want to decide which charities you want to give. Those charities also have to be a 501c3. So again, trying to take away any bad behavior and make sure it is going to an appropriate charity. And then on the other end, though, if you want to get more sophisticated, or if you are a surgeon or you're a doctor where you're making higher income and you want to get more creative, there are things like charitable remainder trusts. So you can create a charitable vehicle using a trust. And then, like we talked about in a previous video, with trust, you can add different rules and have different benefits by using those vehicles. But again, usually you want to have a good amount that you're going to be giving. This can be something that stays in place for years and years and years. As far as funding it, you can fund it year in and year out and continue to use this vehicle in the future for charity.
Tom, Sean, thank you for your time and this information about year-end planning. Lee, we look forward to joining you on our next session of Wealth Health, Financial Planning and Answers for Individuals in the Healthcare Industry. Thank you.